It was by no means the easiest or prettiest win BYU has had, but they're 5-0, and we're recapping the good, the bad, and the ugly in the West Virginia game. It's all ahead on a Film Review Monday.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we're going to recap the West Virginia win. What did I take away after rewatching this game? Well, there's plenty, good, bad, and ugly, and we'll delve into all of it ahead. We'll also get to our Big 12 stock report, whose stock is up, whose is down, and who's kind of neutral across this league. We'll talk about all of that, and then we'll finish up with a big commitment for the BYU basketball program. KJ Perry announced he's going to be a BYU Cougar. What does he do for Kevin Young and company? We'll get into that ahead on today's show as well. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com right now. Your first $5 bet, if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to play around with on their website or via the app. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's dive right in on today's show. BYU is 5-0. They're ranked 18th in the country, moving up 5 spots in the AP poll, also 18th in the coaches poll. And I think that's a measure of respect, especially considering this win over West Virginia was not easy. It wasn't pretty, nor were the stats particularly gaudy in favor of BYU. But the nice part is I think BYU is one of the 15 remaining undefeated teams in the country for the second straight year. They've started 5-0. The same thing that Kalani Sitake did back in 2020 and 2021 in starting 5-0. It's pretty impressive considering BYU in their history has 9, count them 9, 5-0 starts in program history, and Kalani owns nearly half of them. Pretty impressive stuff from BYU's head coach. But beyond that, looking back at this West Virginia game, the number one thing of paramount concern is how long a guy like Jack Kelly is going to be out. Now, as of recording of this podcast, I do not know the severity, the exact nature of his injury, nor do I know what the timeline is for his return. But the early returns I have heard from people is they do not believe it's a season-ending injury. So that is good news on its head that he is not gone for the entire year. But as we have discussed on our postcast on Saturday morning, I should say, this is a 6-game gauntlet upcoming starting this Saturday at Arizona that is going to test the absolute mettle and depth that BYU has in its program. These 6 games will define the season for good, better, or worse, whatever adjective you want to use, because these are the 6 opponents that really matter on this schedule. And it's no offense to the West Virginia, Colorado, or even UCF in the regular season finale. They're just not the same level and same caliber of opponent BYU will face. But with Jack Kelly out, rewatching this game, if there is going to be one guy who's going to fill that role that Jack Kelly has filled, I think it's Siale Esera. Now, Siale plays the Mac backer versus what Jack had been playing as the wheel or the weak side linebacker. But I was really impressed with Siale Esera in this game. I rewatched it and I was like, man, 54 is everywhere. And he stepped up big time with a guy like Jack Kelly exiting, as well as Isaiah Glasker. Those two exited the game, and Siale Esera became by default the veteran or the leading voice in that linebacking unit. I thought other guys like Ace Kafusi, Max Alford, even a moonlight appearance by Micah Kafusi as well. All of them had some moments. There's also some youth and inexperienced moments in there. Also, Miles Hall, I should mention, also saw some action. So the nice part is I think Siale Esera is very capable of stepping up and helping fill that role that Jack Kelly vacates for however long he is out. The other thing I appreciated defensively about this game was that we continue to underrate John Taumoepeau and Bodie Schoonover. Maybe I'm missing the conversation about those two, but they are the least talked about, most effective defensive lineman BYU's got. And that's no shade being flung at anybody else on that defensive line. I'm just saying, I turn on the tape and number 55, which is what JT, John Taumoepeau wears, and number 48 that Schoonover wears, they flash every single time I'm out there. They're penetrating. They're holding up in run defense. They are proving to be very, very vital cogs in this BYU defense. A lot of you have asked me questions. Well, why isn't Keanu Tanuvasa much as effective as we expected him to be? Well, rewatching this game against West Virginia, and it's kind of continued a theme I've noticed, is that Keanu is facing a lot of double teams, and a lot of teams are game planning to go away from him when it comes to their plays. If he is given opportunities to go one-on-one with a lot of opponents, you watch him dominate those one-on-one opportunities. But it's tough when you got double and triple teams headed your way, and especially if you're playing on the backside of any individual play, if they're game planning against that. I think Keanu is being plenty effective in his own right, and I thought that his game against West Virginia was a return to more of what I expected. Were his stats gaudy? No. 3 tackles, a tackle for loss, but as a defensive tackle, it's really hard if plays are going away from you, and especially when you're getting the brunt of the offensive line's fury, to use that expression, in terms of doubling you. It's tough to make a major impression, but I want to continue to see more from a guy like Keanu Tanuvasa. I also, sticking on the defensive line just for a moment, I also wrote this down. Justin Kirkland is getting better every time we see him out there. That 4th down stop BYU had late in the second half, Justin Kirkland led the charge, and at 340 pounds, he's an absolute load to move anywhere, and he held up extremely well. Max Alford came through, got a big hit on the running back. I thought that Siale Esera also had his moments in that individual play, and it's good to see guys like that stepping up that may not be household names right now, but eventually are going to have to fill those roles, and that's a positive thing to have guys like that stepping up. Flipping over the defense here. The 3 turnovers for BYU, I think, are different types of turnovers, and what I mean by that is Bear Bachmeier's interception. Okay, you know what? That was a linebacker who realized exactly what was going on and stepped right into a passing lane, and the ball appeared out of nowhere and fell right into his mitts. It's a great film review interception. Credit to that West Virginia defender for realizing what was going on, backing off and not rushing upfield and making a great play. Similar type circumstance for the fumble that Bear Bachmeier had on that speed option. BYU speed option is well chronicled under Aaron Roderick's tenure as BYU's offensive coordinator. They use it, and they've used it to great effect. West Virginia blitzed a safety right into that play, and that safety, he made a great play by realizing, hey, I'm going to force the action out inside out, so meaning he's going to force a guy like Bear Bachmeier to pitch it out. And then he just reaches out and gets his bear paw on that ball. It's a great individual play. I obviously don't want to see turnovers like that. You don't want to see turnovers, period. But those 2 turnovers from Bear Bachmeier are more explainable. The one that is not explainable and is unacceptable is the one from Jovesa Damouni. Jovesa Damouni is very capable of being RB2 while Sione Moa is out for the BYU football program. But one thing that Kalani Sitake, one thing I think he was very upset about was Jovesa Damouni fumbling that ball. He gets tackled, gets sandwiched by 2 defenders, and only has 1 arm on the ball. If you notice Bear Bachmeier, I'm doing this on YouTube if you're watching the video, Bear Bachmeier, every time he gets in traffic, instinctively, his second arm comes over the ball to protect it from getting stripped out. That is a credit to great coaching he had growing up, realizing that ball security is of paramount importance. A guy Jovesa Damouni had 1 hand carrying a little bit like a loaf of bread, and it gets taken out of his hand, and he fumbles that football. So the 2 turnovers that Bear Bachmeier had, you tip your cap to the defense. Those are great individual plays. The one by Jovesa Damouni, that is one that's very, very avoidable and needs to be cleaned up, because Kalani Sitake, Harvey Unga, Aaron Roderick, and anybody else associated with BYU's offense, I think the talent is there for Jovesa Damouni, but if you are going to have a risk of potentially fumbling the football, you'll find a quick way to have a seat on that bench. They are very, very reticent to put guys out on the field that are turnover risks on the field. Other things I took away. I think the midline read option for Bear Bachmeier is a great play right now for BYU. And if you don't know what a midline read option is, it's a lot of times where you see like a guy like LJ or Parker Kingston come flashing across, like doing a fly sweep. And it's essentially a read option for Bear Bachmeier, but he's reading the interior of the defensive line. If they decide to pursue inside out, he pulls it, plunges right up the gut, and he did it to great effect against Colorado late in that game against the Buffaloes, and did it again against West Virginia. I like that play a lot, and Bear Bachmeier is really, really talented at reading that play in particular. Let's see other things. Oh, some of you asked and had concerns about BYU's inability to run against West Virginia. Well, I rewatched this game, and routinely it's a numbers game. West Virginia, no matter, even if at the snap they had maybe 5 guys in the box, there was usually a blitzer coming from somewhere else to make it at least a 6-man box. And then when BYU went with more heavier personnel, speaking of tight ends and the like, they brought more tight ends into the fold. Well, guess what? More defenders crowded the box. West Virginia, it looked like to me, had a plan going into this game to have at least one extra defender in the box than BYU could actually block. And that's a numbers game. If you've got 7 guys trying to block 8, that makes it difficult to get traction. There were times that LJ Martin busted loose and had some great plays, but if that's going to continue, BYU is going to continue to do what they've done against West Virginia and throw the ball down the field to loosen up that box. You have to force the defenders to back off and make it a lighter box where if it's 6v6, that's an advantage for BYU with that offensive line. But once again, if you get outflanked and outmaneuvered with those numbers, that's when it gets difficult. And I very much saw that on tape. All right. Final couple of notes here. Sam Vanderhaar very well may have had a rushing touchdown on that fake field goal if Andrew Gentry may have gotten onto his block. I'm talking like a beat. I'm not going to blame Andrew Gentry. I'm just saying if Sam Vanderhaar has Andrew Gentry engaged with the defender that he was going out to block, Sam Vanderhaar very well may have run for a touchdown. It was a monster hole created by BYU's field goal unit on that fake field goal. And I'm telling you, Vanderhaar very well may have had his first and maybe only rushing touchdown had things gone a little bit differently. But it was a great pickup, a great call in that circumstance. And once again, one block may have been the difference between 6 and what eventually ended up in a field goal. And the final note I got for you guys on this is that looking forward now for BYU, this 6-game stretch, BYU's got to absolutely bring their best. They have not been pretty wins against Colorado and Arizona, but they are gritty, learn a lot about yourself type wins. Now you got to fine tune it. You had an extra day to prepare, obviously getting ready for Arizona this week by virtue of playing on Friday night. I fully expect BYU should be more finely tuned, and I hope more locked in and engaged than they have been the last 2 games as they go up against the Wildcats, because I'll reiterate, and we'll talk more about it on tomorrow's podcast, but this 6-game stretch, it's going to absolutely define this season for better or for worse, and BYU needs to get out on the front foot and do their thing against Arizona this week. All right, there you go. So that's my film review, taking away what I watched from BYU. I also should note this. Those of you who are concerned BYU's not playing a full 60 minutes, they have an FBS best 32 straight quarters. That's 8 straight games stretching back to last season where they have scored every quarter going all the way back. Is that the Arizona State game? So they've done a lot of good. And scoring offense has not necessarily been a weak point for BYU. It's pretty good. That's FBS best in that span, 32 and counting in terms of scoring in quarters consecutively. All right, that's just one other quick note to add along. Coming up next, though, we take a look around the Big 12. Who stood out last week among the league? Well, Texas Tech sure did. I think Cincinnati, they're going to be a problem for programs like BYU. We'll get into all that and more as we roll on this Monday edition of Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Peloton. They are shaping the future of fitness with a brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, which is powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors along the way, it is this training reimagined. It's built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach your peak performance. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the best part is you don't have to miss what's going on. You're not having to listen and try and figure out what's going on. With the personalized class recommendations to keep you engaged, you get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level, every single week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for your support of the podcast. I mentioned this on Saturday night, but I want to give another shout out in case they missed it to all the Cougar fans who said hi on Saturday night as I was walking around. One of my favorite things to do, I've done it starting this year. I really didn't do it in the past very often. I started walking the concourses pregame at LES. Kind of get a feel for the vibe. And you know what? By virtue of that, I get to meet a lot of people who are fans of the podcast. So I got to give shout outs, and I didn't get a lot of last names here, and I obviously missed writing down some of these. I'm doing better about writing them down, but I want to give a shout out to Tom Jackson, who actually works on the chain gang during the games down there at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. John, Mark Leishman from Alberta, Canada, who drove down for this game. The Nelsons from Washington, Utah, who drive up, and they were a lovely lovely couple who say they watch every single day. So shout out to you guys. Texas Colonel, who's a well-known Twitter follow of mine on social media. Glenn, Lillian, and Bubba. They're the Hulk guys. If you've seen them in the crowd wearing the Hulk masks and the big fists, that's Glenn and Bubba. Lillian, Glenn's wife, also was quick to say hello. Want to give a shout out to Sean Moon, the Whiting family from Avondale, Arizona, and Val, who also said hi post game, as well as the Doe family. They shouted me out as I was walking towards the BYU press conference. Kevin Doe's family, who's a walk-on backup cornerback for BYU. So thank you to all of you for saying hello. All right, let's get to our Big 12 stock report and look around the league real quick. The biggest thing I took away this week is it sure looks like Texas Tech, they're the class of this league right now. I got no problem saying that. They went in and absolutely demolished a previously undefeated Houston team, 35-11, and made it look relatively easy. Texas Tech is legit, folks, and Baron Morton bounced back after a head injury against Utah, 345 yards and 1 touchdown. Really looked the part as he stepped back into the starting role. I think that the Red Raiders, they're everything they were cracked up to be in the preseason and then some, and until they're knocked off, I'm telling you, they're the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12 and represent the conference, at least in the college football playoff. Cincinnati, I think, asserted itself as a force this season. When you beat Iowa State, who's a very, very good team, I think Brendan Sorsby and the Bearcats are a problem. Stock is way up on Cincinnati, and that's why I think this next 6 games for BYU, which will be capped at the end in the penultimate game of the regular season with BYU going to Cincinnati in late November, that's going to be a tough game, it looks like, on paper. Now, that's still 6 games from now. A lot can change, but the Cincinnati Bearcats are 4-1 and look plenty frisky. Iowa State, that was a bit of a disappointing loss because you look at it and say, okay, if you want to remain atop the league or near the top of the league, you can't lose games like that. But I also understand that they lost their starting cornerbacks to a pair of ACL injuries last week. It may take some time to stabilize that defense a little bit for Iowa State, but they battled. It was 38-30. It was a close game there. I'm not sure what to make of Baylor. They're 4-2, but they nearly gagged it away against Kansas State. They had to block a field goal at the end. Sawyer Robertson continues to put up monster numbers, but somehow Baylor's just scraping by. So I want to say stock is up for the Bears at 4-2, but man, they're just maybe stock is neutral on that front. BYU's next opponent, Arizona, they make quick work of Oklahoma State. I don't know what to make of that because the Cowboys, they're in transition, obviously. Fired head coach, fired defensive coordinator. Some players have already said they're going to transfer. Who knows? I did pick Colorado to beat TCU on my Big 12 Big Picks on Friday. Well, TCU in the latter stages of this game ran away with it 21-7 in the fourth quarter. It was tied up 21-all when Colorado scored. But the Buffs, they're 2-4. Their 2 wins, non-Power 4 opponents. The 4 losses, Power 4 opponents. Tough look for the Buffs, and it's prayers up, by the way, for Deion Sanders. Says he might have some more blood clot issues in his leg. Says he was in an awful amount of pain during that game. He was not pictured, but he was shown on TV wearing one shoe because of that pain. That's no fun, and I wish him the best. And the other game to look at is Kansas and UCF. It was a tough win for Kansas on the road to go down to UCF and win. UCF seems like they're going to be a tougher route than I think some expect, but I expect Kansas to handle that a little bit better than they did. So I'd say stock is a little bit up on UCF, but I think Kansas is holding steady. We'll see what happens. This next week, I think, is going to tell us a lot about this Big 12, and I'm interested to see how it shakes out. We have 4 teams in the league that are ranked. BYU, by virtue of their win, is now the second highest ranked team. You have Arizona State at 21, and then also Iowa State dropping to 22 after that loss. But some big games. You have UCF in Cincinnati, Arizona State at Utah, Houston at Oklahoma State, Iowa State at Colorado. Can Colorado get over the hump? That'd be a big win for them if they can do it at home. TCU at Kansas State, and then Kansas, Texas Tech. Could be a little bit frisky. That's going to be a 5:30 game on Fox with BYU right around the same time at 6 o'clock on Saturday night against Arizona. But this league, it's fighting for respect, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I do think that Texas Tech, they surely look like the class of the league, and all the money that people were talking about for good or bad, it looks to have paid off because they're looking like absolute juggernauts in the Big 12 at this moment. All right, coming up next, we'll finish up today's show with some good news for the BYU basketball program. KJ Perry has announced his commitment to BYU. Well, he's a member of the 2026 class, but he's going to enroll in December or in January for winter semester. How does that all work out? We'll explain why this is such a nice pickup for KYU and company. We'll do that next right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots are running on Square, my friends. And the best part is there are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. We all know about this. No matter where you grew up, it seemed like they were integral parts of your community. And that's the best part about Square is they are running on Square. They have been there helping these businesses be what they are and bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And that's why places like J-Dogs, who is a Utah original that I have absolutely loved since their days way back in that little red shack on that southeastern corner, just across the street from BYU campus to what Jay and his company have built. Absolutely incredible. There's other places like Black Sheep Cafe in downtown Provo, Communal. They're like more of that kind of upscale, unique eats. They got all this, and they're all integral parts of their community. And that's what I love about why Square is supporting these companies. Take this out as an excuse to go support that favorite local spot and have yourself a day in the neighborhood, because Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.go/lockedoncollege to learn more now. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. That's all courtesy of Square. See you in the neighborhood. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel knows that the NFL season is here, and they're having an offer to help you have some fun, but you also don't want to miss out on it. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app or on their website. The best part of FanDuel, makes it so easy to play in a myriad of different ways. You can build parlays, try player props, do over-unders, futures, odds, in-game betting. All of the different options and a bevy more are available to you now. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something extra riding on the action. Whether you're just a casual fan or love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, that $5 bet can net you $300 in bonus bets. Simple as that. So once again, go to FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app and get started with our friends over at FanDuel. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. If you have not signed up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, what are you waiting for? Be a part of it and get the inside scoop on all things BYU you want coming right to your phone in the form of a text message. It's just $5 a month to be a part of the group. But the kicker is you get a 14-day free trial. We can get you all the way through rivalry week against Utah if you sign up today without charging a single penny. So that's a fun little tidbit. Join us today. Link is in the show notes below, or reach out to us and we'll get you squared away as a member of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, before we go on today's show, KJ Perry announced his commitment to BYU yesterday. This is a big pickup for Kevin Young and company because KJ Perry looks like a great piece for the future for BYU basketball. This year's roster, it's going to be headlined by AJ DeBonsa, Richie Saunders, Robert Wright III, Keba Keita, and the other guys on the periphery of that core unit. And there's a lot of good players on this roster. But if you look beyond that, we all expect AJ DeBonsa is going to be here for one season. Richie Saunders ages out. Keba Keita is supposed to move along. Dawson Baker, etc. Even a guy like Rob Wright could move along for the BYU basketball program after this upcoming season. Well, that's why a guy like KJ Perry looks the part of maybe kind of next iteration of what BYU basketball looks like under Kevin Young. He's a 6'2", 6'3" guard, depending on where you look, who is the number 1 rated junior college prospect in the country. He comes to BYU by way of Citrus College, and he plans to enroll at BYU in January for winter semester. But much like Kadeem Mboop last year, he will enroll in January, redshirt, and then will be a bigger part of the team next year, where he will be a redshirt sophomore with 3 years of eligibility remaining. This is a kid who has got two-way ability, and what that means is he's got the ability to score, but he also got the ability to play very, very well on the defensive end of the court. In fact, if you look at his stats from last year, he averages shade over 17 points in scoring for Citrus College. But beyond that, had one game where he had an outburst for 48 points. I saw that he had 7 times he scored over 20 points. But if you also watch his highlights, he's very capable, but he doesn't mind defending. He's not just a one-way player who's trying to just play offense and, I guess, cherry picking in a way. He gets after it on the defensive end of the court, and that's what Kevin Young's going to demand of him. I don't know if Rob Wright III is going to leave after the season for BYU, because Rob looks like he is the point guard for BYU. But even if he does or he doesn't, KJ Perry is perfectly capable of being a secondary ball handler and an off-ball guard, it appears, from my perspective. And if he is the point guard of the future, he's got great size, and his ability to play, say, both ways will serve him well in Kevin Young's system. The nice part is BYU beat out the likes of USC, SMU, and TCU, all who had him visits. He had offers from places like Arizona State and others. So I really like this commitment. And the other thing is he may not have had a lot of assists during his junior college days, but this is a kid that went the junior college route to kind of hone his skills and get a bigger opportunity for himself. He's from Southern California, if I recall correctly, but he also was mentioned, I should say, that he originally committed to Cal State Northridge and decided, you know what, I want to go the junior college route and take another opportunity on myself playing at that level versus maybe playing at the Big West level and maybe not getting the same type of time that he got in his first 2 years at in Division I school, if that makes sense. So I think this is a great pickup. I think it's a nice nod to the future for BYU and what Kevin Young is building here. The other thing I look at this for is that Kevin Young is already setting up, it looks like, a continuity plan for BYU basketball. I think with guys like AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders essentially kind of being the two focal points of this year's team, well, guess what? You need to have options that can learn from those guys. And then when they move along, they're ready to kind of step in, and there's really no drop-off in many respects. Nobody's going to confuse KJ Perry for AJ DeBonsa or Richie Saunders because those guys are premier wing players. They're 6'5", 6'6". In the case of AJ, could be nearly 6'10" and are premier wing players. But also, BYU's proven to be a pretty perimeter-oriented team. So that's why I like what KJ Perry could bring here. He'll come in January. He'll get to practice with this team, really get to know the ins and outs of Kevin Young's system. And next summer, when they go through their summer workouts leading into the 26-27 season, he should already be well-versed in what BYU wants him to do. And also, depending on what Robert Wright III does, he either is the starting point guard or likely factors in as maybe that off-ball guard, the two guard in BYU's system. And I think there will be a really, really nice kind of bridge to the next iteration of what BYU's doing. Kevin Young's not going to slow down recruiting. This shows that he is continuing to get after it. I think it was Will Voigt, or may have been his brother Justin Young, speaking of Kevin Young, put out the BYU in their last 3 recruiting classes has brought in the number 1 Euro prospect, the number 1 country prospect in the United States of America, and now the number 1 junior college prospect in all of America. This recruiting stuff that Kevin Young's pulling off here, folks, it's downright revolutionary. And we should be enjoying everything that KJ brings to the table for BYU. I think that this is a kid who thoroughly examined all of his options. There was some thought that he may opt to go somewhere else because he maybe didn't think that it was a premier enough role at BYU based on some of the chatter I was observing and hearing. But the nice part is I think Kevin Young, when he gets guys on campus and kind of lays out what the whole vision for BYU basketball is, it's very hard to say no to that because Kevin Young is a no-nonsense straight shooter. That's what guys in the NBA absolutely loved about him. I have heard from people I have talked to who have NBA connections, said the reason why Kevin Young was so beloved by guys like Chris Paul, who else am I thinking of? Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, is because he didn't mince words. He told them exactly what he liked, what he didn't like, and there was no sugarcoating it because he was afraid for his job status. Kevin Young is a no-nonsense, no-frills type dude, and I think that it resonates with young men. They've grown up in many respects being lauded and applauded for everything that they have done in their basketball careers, and so many people don't want to kind of, in a way, like run afoul of them. But a guy like Kevin Young is going to tell them exactly what he sees for them. He's going to explain exactly why he thinks this will work for you, why you should be a part of this, and if you buy in, track record already suggests that Jaeger Demon, as the number 8 pick in the NBA draft, it paid off for him. It sure looks like AJ DeBonsa, no matter what 24/7 Sports continues to say, because now he's the number 3 prospect in this last recruiting class. Don't get me started there. Regardless, he may end up as the number 1 overall draft pick next year. And everything Kevin Young is building here is to build continuity in this program to continue to pump out this talent annually. Just as important as you have top-end talent like an AJ DeBonsa, you need the likes of what BYU gets in KJ Perry, where he may not be a one-and-doner, but he's got 2 or 3 years to develop in this system, and by the end of it, could be like a Richie Saunders, where he's a late bloomer in some people's eyes and ends up as an NBA draft pick. That's the good news of what BYU's building under Kevin Young right now. So embrace it, celebrate it, and it sure looks like the good times, they're getting ready to roll. I'm super excited for this BYU basketball season because I think we saw kind of the vision of what Kevin Young is building last year. They made that run to the Sweet 16, but AJ DeBonsa said it himself this year. The floor in his mind for BYU this year is the Sweet 16. If they don't make it there, he's going to consider it a failure. And he wants to run to the national title game. He wants to make it to a Final Four. I'm all for it, because if BYU pulls that off, that means that the Cougars have been everything and then some that we could have hoped for when Kevin Young took this job, and really has just revolutionized everything about BYU basketball. All right, that'll do it. I'll stop it there. Coming up tomorrow, I want to dive deeper into this 6-game gauntlet that BYU is going up against in football, because I really do think it defines this season. And it looked like a 4-game gauntlet at the outset of the season that was very clear, the Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU combo. But now that Arizona and Cincinnati sure look like they are some of the upstarts and good stories of the season, this 6 games, it's going to absolutely be an absolute must prove yourself type scenario for BYU football. Could they fall on their face? Yeah. Could they fly high? Absolutely. And we'll delve into that tomorrow on the podcast. Also remind you guys, coming up on Thursday, the Locked On and Fire TV combination presents College Football Kickoff. It's your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake 12, Locked On Big 12, is driving the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts as well. It's a college football preview only Locked On and Fire TV can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season. It's only available on Fire TV. So until tomorrow, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your support of this podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars, as we often say, your first listen and or view of the day. And until tomorrow, come back and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.